Hi everybody, David Paul with you in the KHOU 11 Weather Center. It is the 4th of July. This is the 7 o'clock evening update on Hurricane Beryl. Just to set your bearings, there's the Gulf, quiet as a mouse for the moment. That's Beryl. We've been tracking this wave for the past week. About 5 days ago, Hurricane Center, as this came off the west coast of Africa, had a 70% chance that it could develop. Now it's down to a 10% chance. It is not finding itself here, not finding any organization. So that one is on the back burner for now. Here's Cat 2 Beryl. Beryl has continued to encounter a little bit of wind shear out of the southwest, and that has continued the slow weakening process that's been going on for a couple of days now after reaching Cat 5 status. Now we're down to Cat 2 with winds of 110 miles an hour. A couple of days ago, winds had peaked at 165. Now down to 110. So Cat 2 moving west-northwest at 20. That's a fast motion for a tropical system. It's going to move into the Yucatan Peninsula late tonight and into the early morning hours of Friday. So Cancun, Cozumel, Tulum is here as well. They're going to take a pretty hard hit from no longer a major hurricane, but still a strong hurricane. I think it'll go in as a Cat 2, but it may weaken a little bit from its 110 wind speed before it does early tomorrow morning. Storm is looking moderately organized right now, but not nearly as organized as it did a couple of days ago. So here are the spaghetti plots, and boy, they are tightly packed. So we've got this coming in just south of Cancun and across the Yucatan, then into the Gulf and across the southern Gulf. And in general, you can see these all point toward an eventual landfall somewhere in here, most likely northern Mexico or very far south Texas. And then after that, the spaghetti plots do spread out, and the whole thing kind of slows down as well. And that may have impacts for Texas and maybe even Houston with rain later on down the road. We'll talk more about that as we move along. Here's the latest forecast track from the Hurricane Center. Again, going in wee hours of Friday morning south of Cancun as a Cat 2, maybe a strong Cat 1, weakening to a tropical storm as it's over land. It's interacting with the frictional components of the trees and the surface land mass, and then also it's cut off from its energy source, which is the warm water of the tropical Atlantic. So those two factors weaken it pretty rapidly. It emerges as a tropical storm. It then might be able to have enough time to get back to Cat 1 minimal hurricane status Sunday afternoon before making landfall Sunday evening. And again, the center of the cone now looking much more likely that it's going to be northern Mexico, deep south Texas, where they get a direct hit from a Cat 1. So Brownsville, Padre, and you're looking at Cat 1 conditions, several feet of storm surge, obviously a flood threat, a power outage threat, and a heavy rainfall threat. All players for South Texas as we get into the end of the weekend, Sunday afternoon, Sunday night. We're far enough away so that initially, impacts here may be quite limited. It's a tighter circulation than we had with Alberto last month. So even though it's a stronger system in intensity, it's a smaller system. And so we may not get quite the beach erosion and wave action, but we will be watching. It's going to be a rip current threat and an increased surf threat for the end of the weekend in Houston and Galveston. That's Sunday and Monday. And then, the remnants move into Texas or maybe move into Mexico. And that will have significant repercussions as to how much rain this ends up dropping. These tropical systems are notorious rainmakers, even the weak ones. So as this moves in, it's going to drag in just a ton of moisture from off the Gulf. And this is going to be a heavy rain threat somewhere in here, Texas or Mexico. Let's take a look at the steering currents and what's going on with this. So here are the upper level wind pattern right now. We've got several players here. There's a ridge to the north. There is a trough across the central U.S. And there is an upper low out here ahead of the system. That's Beryl. This is the forecast for Friday as Beryl reemerges into the Gulf. So what's happening is at the moment that upper low is kind of pulling Beryl along, kind of like walking a dog, kind of pulling on the leash, kind of pulling Beryl with it. It's caught up in that flow, and that's what's taking it in general right up into here, into South Texas and northern Mexico. So as we go into Sunday, there's our upper low pulling the dog, pulling the leash, pulling Beryl into northern Mexico and South Texas. That's why the storm is heading in that direction. Still have this trough to the north. Eventually that trough's going to want to pick up that moisture. So the storm makes landfall Sunday night. We go into Monday, Tuesday, and what there is of the circulation dissipates, but a lot of that moisture is going to be left over, and it's going to end up perhaps in Texas. And if it gets into Texas, we go into Tuesday, and at the upper levels, we've got this pretty good jet streak coming across. That can help to lift the atmosphere, and this could be a significant rainmaker for Texas early next week. Could be. So let me show you a couple of scenarios. This is the rainfall forecast from the American model, the GFS, and it does bring a whole lot of rain to central and south Texas and close to Houston. You know, we could see several inches of rain. That's the American model. This is the next 7 days. So it's now through Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. The American model. The European model has a much more southern track of the storm. It gets pulled further into Mexico, and it moves the rain threat into deep South Texas and Mexico. And in that scenario, we don't get much rain here. So it's going to be a rainmaker. The question is, where is it going to be a heavy rainmaker? And at the moment, it's too far out to tell exactly who's going to get the heavy rain, but that's what we're watching now. Instead of a direct impact from a tropical system making landfall here in Houston, Galveston, it eventually is going to be, where is the rain going to go from all the moisture that the system pulls in? So what do we do with all this information? I think what we're looking at Sunday, Monday at a minimum on the Galveston coast is increasing surf, increasing rip current threat. We'll see an increase in rain chance next week. Exactly how that's going to play out remains to be seen. And just bottom line, stay close to the forecast. As you know, even though we may not get direct impacts from a landfalling storm, the indirect impacts could end up being significant if we end up getting more of that rain up here in Houston and Galveston. That's where we stand on the 4th of July. We'll keep you posted as we head into the coming weekend, and hopefully get this thing scooted out of here without too much in the way of a problem, but we'll keep monitoring it very carefully as we head through over the weekend.